They say a good fence makes good neighbors. But in Crespine Lakes, it wasn't a fence that divided us. It was a password. I bought this home for the quiet, the stability, the peace. But peace is a fragile thing when entitlement lives next door. It started with a laggy internet connection and ended with an arrest. In between lies, manipulation, and a woman who thought HOA power made her untouchable. She used my Wi-Fi like it was her birthright until I pulled the plug. What came next? Well, let's just say she never expected karma to show up with a badge. This is the story of how I reclaimed not just my connection, but my dignity. Marcus Grant had always believed in working hard and minding his own business. After nearly a decade in cybersecurity, he'd finally landed the promotion that let him trade in his cramped Atlanta apartment for a brick colonial in the quiet, upscale neighborhood of Crespine Lakes, just outside Savannah, Georgia. The house wasn't massive, but it was his. A wraparound porch, tall oak trees, and enough space for a small vegetable garden. More importantly, it represented something bigger: peace. After years in the tech grind, Marcus was ready to enjoy the quiet. At least, that was the plan. It started small. His Wi-Fi had been lagging slower than usual. At first, he chalked it up to his smart fridge downloading a firmware update, or maybe a neighbor's baby monitor bleeding signal. But after 3 days of buffering Zoom calls and delayed smart locks, his patience wore thin. He sat down one evening, opened his network admin panel, and scanned for connected devices. There it was, a MacBook with an unfamiliar host name, connected, actively streaming, and it had been for weeks. Marcus blinked. He'd set up his router with a strong, encrypted password. He was in cybersecurity. After all, no way someone cracked it, which meant someone had been given the password. He changed it immediately, purged all devices, and enabled a rotating security key. That should have been the end of it. But the next morning, as he stood on his porch, sipping his coffee, the neighbor from 2 doors down marched up his front steps like she owned the place. "Excuse me," she snapped. "Did you change your Wi-Fi password?" She didn't knock, didn't smile, just stood there, arms crossed, manicured nails tapping against her elbow. Meredith Langley, the HOA president. The type of woman who wore pearls to mow her lawn. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, I did. Why?" She scoffed. "Because my internet stopped working. And don't play dumb, I've been using your network for months." For a second, he thought she was joking. "I didn't authorize that," he said flatly. "It's just Wi-Fi," she said, waving her hand like he was a child throwing a tantrum. "It's not like it cost you anything. We're neighbors." "Or do you not believe in community?" Marcus clenched his jaw. "Community means mutual respect, not stealing bandwidth and calling it neighborly." Her eyes narrowed. "Is that how you people act where you're from?" There it was. He set his mug down carefully. "Look, I don't know what kind of neighborhood politics you're used to, but I didn't sign up for this. My home, my network, stay off it." Meredith's lips curled into a smirk. "You'll regret this." And with that, she turned on her heel and marched back down the steps. He watched her disappear around the corner, then exhaled slowly. He didn't know it yet, but Meredith Langley had just declared war. A war that would soon involve the police, the HOA board, city attorneys, and the internet itself. And all because Marcus changed his Wi-Fi password. By the end of the week, strange things started happening. Marcus returned home Friday evening to find a printed letter taped to his front door. It bore the Crespine Lakes HOA letterhead and was signed, unsurprisingly, by Meredith Langley. "Dear resident, it has come to our attention that your property may be in violation of Community Standard Code 4.3.1 unauthorized network activity. Additionally, neighbors have reported aggressive behavior and failure to comply with shared amenity expectations. You are hereby requested to attend a disciplinary review with the HOA board on Monday at 10:00 a.m. Marcus nearly laughed. Unauthorized network activity. What even was that cyber trespassing in reverse? Still, He knew better than to underestimate the petty power games of HOA politics. He spent the weekend gathering evidence, screenshots of router logs, network activity history, and a copy of his purchase contract clearly outlining the lot boundaries, none of which included shared internet access. But when Monday came, the boardroom wasn't a meeting, it was an ambush. Meredith presided like a queen over her court, flanked by two board members who avoided Marcus's gaze. She laid out her case with dramatic flair, claiming that Marcus had maliciously denied community access to shared resources and created an atmosphere of hostility. When Marcus calmly presented his documentation, Meredith waved it off. These logs could be fabricated. You're in. What is it, cybersecurity? Her voice lingered on the last word, like it was a threat. I know your kind, always hiding behind technical jargon to exploit loopholes. The community doesn't feel safe with someone so evasive. Marcus stared at her in disbelief. Because I changed my Wi-Fi password, Meredith leaned forward, smiling sweetly. Because you don't belong here. Silence. It wasn't about internet. It was about control. Marcus stood, collected his documents, and said nothing. Not yet. But that night, he installed motion cameras facing every angle of his property, just in time, because the next morning, a squad car pulled up to his driveway. Two officers stepped out. One of them approached the porch, tapping on the wooden railing with a casual but deliberate knock. Mr. Grant. We received a report of suspicious digital activity coming from your residence. Mind if we have a word? Marcus blinked. You've got to be kidding me. Afraid not. Sir. The younger officer replied. Neighbor claims you're running unauthorized surveillance and possibly cyberstalking the block. Cyberstalking. Meredith had escalated this beyond pettiness. This was now defamation and potentially criminal accusation. I have every right to monitor my own property. Marcus said firmly. If someone's trespassing, I want a record. May we see the footage? The older officer asked, more neutral in tone. Marcus led them inside, where he pulled up clips from the night before, clear as day. Meredith sneaking into his backyard, peering into his windows. At one point, she even held up what appeared to be a signal booster toward his router window. The officers watched, then looked at each other. I think we've seen enough. The older one said, Sir, we'll file an incident report. If she steps foot on your property again, call us directly. As they left, the younger officer muttered, Jesus, she really thought she was untouchable. Marcus closed the door, locked it, and sat down at his desk. This wasn't just about Wi-Fi anymore. It was about someone trying to frame him, paint him as a threat, and use the system against him, all because she thought no one would believe him. And honestly, she almost got away with it. But almost wasn't enough. He plugged in a USB drive and began backing up every file, every log, every clip. He was done playing defense. It was time to expose everything. By Thursday afternoon, Marcus was done waiting for justice to sort itself out. He'd been careful, methodical. Over the last 2 days, he'd compiled a full report complete with surveillance footage, digital forensics from his router logs, timestamps, and IP data linked directly to Meredith's devices, with the help of a tech-savvy friend from his old cybersecurity firm. He was able to trace a pattern of suspicious online activity that pointed back to a larger issue. Meredith wasn't just freeloading. She was masking her identity online using his network. And worse, there were flagged patterns. Transactions through third-party gift card sites, logins to online forums under fake names. One username had been connected to complaints in 3 other neighborhoods across the state, places Meredith had lived before moving to Crestpine Lakes. This wasn't HOA pettiness. This was calculated behavior. Marcus contacted a local investigative reporter, the kind who loved taking down entitled figureheads, especially when they'd crossed legal lines. He didn't share everything, just enough to get her attention. By Saturday morning, the headline appeared online: HOA president accused of cyber harassment, digital fraud, and abuse of power in Crestpine Lakes. The article went viral in the local community overnight. Residents who had stayed quiet for years now came forward with stories. Meredith had fined an elderly man for an unauthorized bird bath. Another woman said Meredith threatened eviction when her teenage son parked on the street for a weekend. The real breaking point came when one of the HOA's board members anonymously submitted screenshots of internal emails. Meredith had proposed using HOA dues to install signal extenders on public light post devices that Marcus now realized were part of her rogue network setup. By Monday, the HOA called an emergency public meeting. Marcus attended, sitting near the back, arms folded, eyes calm. Meredith stood at the podium, her posture tight, hair immaculate, but her voice trembled as she tried to explain herself. "This is all a misunderstanding," she insisted. "I've served this community for over 6 years with honor. These accusations are the result of a technical error." "No, Meredith," one board member interrupted. "You used our fees for your own equipment. You trespassed on private property. You called the police on a neighbor over a password." Gasps echoed through the room. Someone in the crowd shouted, "You tried to frame him," and then silence. All eyes turned to Marcus. He stood. Slowly. "I didn't want any of this," he said. "I moved here to enjoy peace. But someone made me into a villain because they couldn't accept boundaries, digital or personal. I was called a threat because I refused to be used. And now, here we are." He looked straight at Meredith. "Do you still feel in control?" Meredith opened her mouth, but no words came out. The board took a vote. The decision was swift and unanimous. Meredith Langley was removed from her position as HOA president, effective immediately. A formal police investigation was already underway. The officer who took Marcus's report had confirmed the evidence was enough to support potential charges for trespassing, digital impersonation, and misuse of public funds. But Marcus didn't celebrate. Not outwardly. He simply walked out of the meeting, nodded at a few neighbors who now saw him in a new light, and returned to the home he had fought for, not just with documents, but with integrity. That night, for the first time in weeks, his internet ran perfectly. So did the justice system.